considering like what has been going on in Indonesian politics, you know where I'm going with this, right? There has been a lot of criminalization of technocrats in Indonesia, and I feel like a lot of people are scared. So,
Are you scared?
yeah,
That's
are
my
you
honest
scared?
question.
To be honest,
Welcome back to the What Is Up Indonesia podcast with your host Ando Vida Lopez.
And me, Abigail Limuria,
And of course, as always, we always have a very special guest.
the very specialist guest.
Yes. He is the Deputy Coordinating Minister for Basic Infrastructure.
Now, but previously, he has many titles.
Many titles, which we're going to discuss later on,
Yeah,
of course.
very interesting career
Yes.
path, I would say.
Please give it up for Bang Rahmat Kaimuddin.
good afternoon.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon.
Bang, how are you? Everything good?
Good.
I heard that this is your first podcast in a while.
Yes,
Is that true?
it is true. For a while, yeah.
For a while, yeah. You were in Endgame, right?
I was 2021.
But that was when you were still in Bukalapak,
Yep.
right? I see. So, very honored to be the first podcast in a while for you. I hope that this will be a pleasant experience, right?
I think Wiwi is always the first podcast for many people.
That's true. That
For
is
many
true.
people. Yeah.
I don't know why. We're the debut podcast, apparently.
Yeah,
So let's talk from the very beginning, right? But for a lot of the audience who are still quite unfamiliar with you, so you did electrical engineering at MIT, and then you got an MBA from Stanford. That's like an amazing track record for academic studies. Can you like talk to us a little bit about your experience? How did you end up there? How
Was it
like?
LPDP?
Unfortunately, not LPDP.
Was it LPDP?
No LPDP yet at the time.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, thank you. For me, it's, I would say maybe a dream come true, yeah. If you ask my younger self, my 15 years old self, I probably wouldn't be able to believe you if, say, you told me that I'm going to go to study at MIT
Yeah.
and Stanford. So, I was born and raised in Makassar until junior high school. Basically, my parents are civil servant and then who died, and then I was raised by a single mother. So for me, just being able to go to school and continue my education, go to college is already good enough. We never thought about, actually I could go to MIT. But luckily, a lot of people maybe took pity on me. I won a scholarship. At that time,
Not LPDP.
but not LPDP. No LPDP yet at that time. And also from someone, and also as well as from my office for my master's degree. Yeah. So yeah, I would say the experience, I would say quite overwhelming. I come in, I thought, if I get into MIT, I get into Stanford, I must be very smart, right? I thought initially. But I walked out humbled. I would say it's there's when you get to see really, really smart people. Yeah. Obviously, I would maybe if you think about it, right? MIT and other good schools in the world, what I believe is actually they learn very similar things. Yeah. So I remember I studied electrical engineering at MIT. My textbook is actually very similar to the textbook that my friends use in Singapore and in Bandung Institute of Technology.
Okay.
Yeah. The only difference is that the text is in English, the Bandung one is in Indonesian. But maybe the difference is we got to learn from the one who wrote the textbook. Yeah. For
Right.
example, yeah, and you got to learn from people who actually won Nobel Prizes. So the knowledge is similar, but the environment is quite different. So for me, that is overwhelming, and of course, I was the only Indonesian in my class.
Really?
So that year, I was the only Indonesian. Same at Stanford, I was the only Indonesian in my class. It gives a little bit of pressure as well. You don't want to be the dumbest in your class, right? And they will say, "Oh, you know who is the dumbest in our class? An Indonesian." So you gotta work very hard to ensure that at least you're not the bottom. You don't want to be that guy.
You
I don't
do
wanna be
not
that
want to
guy.
be that guy. You don't want to be that guy. Yeah, so I was actually very curious. You mentioned that you thought you were smart, but then that's when you meet real smart people. So I'm actually very curious. What's your definition of like a smart person when you mention that?
Because in Indonesia, smart people is Deddy Kobusier's audience, you know? Hello, smart people, you know? So we want to know your...
Or in
definition.
Indonesia, like it's usually, like people who can memorize a lot of things.
Yeah. My definition of smart first, is actually, for me, it's about people who know first. Because
Sorry, can you say that?
people who know first.
People who know.
No, first.
What do
Can you
you
please
mean?
elaborate?
So basically, let's say you don't know,
Uh-huh.
and then you learn, then you know. Then you become smart, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, well, maybe, but that is my own personal definition. What I see to be interesting here, I would say, having studied at MIT, having studied at Stanford, and some other places, what I can say is this. What I can say is that God is actually quite fair in giving out brain power.
Okay.
Yeah, you see very, very smart people from wherever. Yeah,
Okay.
From China, from the United States, from African countries, from Indonesia. You'll see a lot of people with brain power. What I think distinguish really potentially successful people and therefore maybe smart, is the work ethics, their standard of excellence. I think I have to admit personally, when I was much younger, I know, for example, if I studied until let's say 8 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will be able to ace the test,
Okay.
and then I stop. But once you start seeing that other people actually want to learn more, want to know more, and they actually can expand just beyond acing the test, but actually shifting from tests to willingness to learn, fulfilling their curiosity, trying to do new things. I think that is the key difference on some of these very, very top institutions.
Nice. So, Bang Rahmat, you have a very interesting career path that we mentioned earlier, right? You went from electrical engineering and MIT, MBA from Stanford, and then you were also the CEO of Bukalapak, and now you're in the government. Can you like walk us through a little bit about your journey?
Okay. So maybe where I am today is actually a function of what I've done before, right? So I told you my quick background. Yeah. So my father is a civil servant.
Yep.
Was a civil servant before he passed away. So working for the government is kind of like a family trait. Yeah. And then I got a scholarship, not LPDP, from Taruna Nusantara High School. This is in '94. And in Taruna Nusantara,
So it was a military high school then? So
yes, semi-military high school,
Semi-military
we call it at the
okay.
time. So I was the fifth batch, we call it. Yeah, so I'm the fifth year when Taruna Nusantara opened. So I entered Taruna Nusantara in '94, left my hometown. And then during that time, we always been educated that at some point you have to prepare yourself, that you may be part of the crew, yeah, they call it, mengawaki kehidupan bangsa. Yeah.
Oh.
The crew of this nation.
How do you translate that in English?
no idea. I have no idea.
So I know at some point, I don't know when, but at some point I want to do something, by joining the government or whatever. It's very vague.
Yep.
In Taruna Nusantara, unlike a lot of my friends, my talents lie in academics, not in, more physical. So I ended up choosing the civilian route. A lot of my friends actually ended up becoming soldiers, right? Join to military academy and whatnot, right? So then I got an opportunity to study at MIT. So I went to MIT. Then I worked in Boston for a year doing electrical engineering. But it was not an easy time in the United States at the time. So my first day of working is 9/11.
No way. Stop it. Your first day of working is 9/11.
Second day.
Still.
Yeah.
Wow.
So typically you get a visa. You get a student visa, so you can work for 1 year, right? OPT.
Yeah.
So after 1 year, my OPT expired, and I got a sponsorship to get my working visa,
Right.
H1B,
Yeah.
right? But because of 9/11, I had to change my visa in Jakarta. I couldn't just stay in the US or just went to Canada, for example. I have to go back to Jakarta to get the H1B visa.
Uh-huh.
And this is a story not that many people I tell actually. At that time, I was asked. I remember I was asked to fill a form with roughly 4 questions.
Okay.
So the first question is, are you a male between 16 to 60?
16 to 60.
So yes.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Second thing is, have you had military training? Okay. SMA Taruna Nusantara?
Which is, technically yes. Technically yes.
Yes, right?
Right.
The third is, do you know electronics?
Oh my God. This is
So I'm an electrical engineer
Check,
from
check,
MIT.
check.
Yeah?
MIT.
Yeah.
Check.
The
Very
fourth.
specific.
Do you know chemistry? Okay. By the way,
Oh,
I was the team leader of the Indonesian Chemistry Olympiad in 97.
Oh my God.
it's like
Wha-
this question is highly personal. It's like very personalized.
So, yeah, maybe I become, it looks like I'm the perfect profile for certain.
For certain individuals in
Yeah.
9/11. Okay. Wow.
Long story short,
Wow.
my visa took a long time.
Right.
Of course. I mean,
Of
nobody could
course.
get visas at that era. Nobody could get visas.
And then my name is Muhammad Rahmat Kaimuddin, right? Just to
Right.
complete the whole equation.
Right.
And the US was not taking any chances back then.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, I thought, okay, I am as what happened, right? So I decided maybe I just should work in Jakarta. What should I do, right? I'm a semiconductor engineer. There is no semiconductor industry in Jakarta or in Indonesia. There's no fab. There's no design houses.
Right.
So I said, okay, what should one do if all you know is how to do analytics, how to count, if you will? And my friend told me, hey, there's this job called management consultant. So what they do is you analyze companies. Do they need people who know who get my skill set? So yeah, I think you'll be okay. So I applied. I got a job as a management consultant.
I see.
This is where I shift from engineering into more like business
Yeah.
management, right? And then worked there for a few years. Then the next step is that I had to get my MBA. So they sent me to do my MBA. And then during my MBA time, I got to learn investment, right? So, hey, there's this way. So I get to meet Warren Buffett. It's like, oh, looks like a cool guy.
You met Warren Buffett.
We met Warren Buffett
Wow.
actually at the time. So we went to Omaha to listen to his speech. And I have a picture with him actually. So he's very, very nice guy. Said, oh, when I'm old, I want to be like this guy. Second wealthiest man
In the world, yeah.
in the world at that time, I believe, but very humble,
Right.
willing to take picture of all these students. So I say, okay, investing. Cool. Is there any investment company in Jakarta. Turns out there is one. Actually, there's a few at that time. So I got to meet this guy who asked me to join his company. His name is Tom Lembong.
Wow.
Really?
So,
Oh.
Wow.
so Pak Tom asked me to join his company. I told him, Pak, I get this scholarship, so I have to pay back I have to serve for a couple of years. He said, no. You will pay for you if you join us right away. So Pak Tom actually, his company pays for my scholarship for my MBA.
I did not
I
know
didn't know
that.
that. Oh, okay.
So anyway, so I joined Pak Tom for a few years working in private equity, so Indonesian company, and then work for another PE firm afterwards. So small firm in Jakarta, but it's regional fund. Then in 2014, I got a call from someone who basically gave me sponsorship, who gave me scholarship for my undergrad.
Mm.
So he, at the time when, someone pay for your school, you wrote a letter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pa. I finished my school. If you need me, you call me.
Right.
And then he called in 2014. Yeah. So he called in 2014. So I worked for his company for 5.5 years until I got an opportunity to join Bukalapak in 2020. Yeah. So I asked him, I got this opportunity to be a CEO
Yeah.
of a unicorn in Indonesia. Only 5 unicorns at that time.
Right.
I would love to take this opportunity. So then we part ways. So I worked for 2 years in Bukalapak. Actually, I thought I will stay in Bukalapak for longer than that. But after IPO, I got my 15 minutes of fame. Yeah, my name is in newspaper. It was the largest IPO at the time in Indonesia. It still is until now. And there is another guy who worked for the government. He basically, and he knows, so I joined 2022. So 10 years before that, in 2012, I helped him IPO his company. So I worked in his company for about 4 months as an advisor. So he got to know me, and we got to know each other. And Pak Luhut remember that I'm from Taruna Nusantara, and we have this aspiration to work for the government. So he called and said, "Look, Rahmat, I read in newspaper. Seems like you finished your job with Bukalapak. You already IPO'd this company. What is your excuse not to join the government?"
What's your excuse
Yeah.
now?
Now, yeah. I was thinking about it and I was like, I actually have no excuse. So I said, okay, Pak, I'll join you. When? I said, yeah, maybe after annual, until RUPS, yeah, annual meeting. So no. Join ASAP. So that's why I joined in January 2022. So this is the story until I joined the government.
So you joined as what?
So I joined initially as an advisor and then special staff. And then afterwards there is an opening of a deputy, which, for Echelon 1 job, Echelon 1, you actually have to you have to do the bidding process.
I see.
So I entered that bidding process and get selected as Deputy of Infrastructure and Transportation in Marves.
Okay, in Marves.
Yeah. And maybe just to close until where I am. So in the new government, Marves get disbanded. New infrastructure and regional development coordinating ministry is created. And my portfolio actually moved
Oh, I see.
to this ministry. And interestingly, the minister is Pak Ahaye, who is my high school classmate and barak mate actually in
Oh.
Taruna Nusantara. So everything is actually
Full circle.
full circle.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Now this is very interesting. And the reason why we specifically have you as a guest in this episode is to talk about EVs, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I have a lot of questions personally.
For sure.
I have a lot of because I own an EV car.
Yeah, when I first told Andovi
Yeah.
we might have you as our guest, and he was like, I want to talk about EV. And he
Yeah.
was very excited.
Yeah. I was an early believer of EV. I was there, before China went all out. I was there in the early days when I followed Tesla's journey, in doing EV and all that stuff. But of course, times have changed. China now dominates the industry. I have a Chinese car because it's just cheap, it's just great, whatever. I'm not promoting it, but I have many questions. First, why is Indonesia like going all out on EV?
Yeah.
I know I want to ask you personally, but all the negatives that's coming with EV, because there's a lot of negative talking points, which I do get.
Yeah.
And I do want your answer in that. But first, why is Indonesia pushing for such EV adoption in
Yeah.
such a scale right now in 2024 and above?
Yeah. I'll tell you some stories. Yeah. Basically, first of all, I joined the government in 2022. Right. In 2019, we already have a commitment. There is a presidential decree number 55 2019. So
Yeah.
I'm talking like a bureaucrat now. Yeah. But anyway, there is already a program to accelerate EV. Okay. But that presidential decree was kind of cut off because of COVID. Because
Okay.
it's out in November 2019.
Okay. and
So
COVID.
maybe kind of like losing momentum here.
Yeah. March 2020 COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I joined, to be honest, we already have pretty decent program at that time. So there are some special incentives given for EV.
Yeah.
Luxury tax zero, annual tax very very cheap, BBN, which is registration or title change, is also zero. So we have this program, tariff preference, professional tariff for EV. But if you follow the growth of EV, in 2020, the EV sales is maybe 100 something.
Okay.
2021, 600 something. So I was one of the guy bought EV in 2021.
Okay.
And then 2022, we have Wuling
And
and
exploded the market.
Hyundai become 10,000. But right now in 2025, we are at 100,000, right? But anyway, in 2022, one thing happened, which is the Russia-Ukraine war.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you remember in 2022, oil price goes up. We ended up having to increase the fuel price in 2022, about 30%, which is not an easy decision to be made for a government, right? Nobody likes to do this type of things. And then my boss at the time, Pak Luhut, the other thing is that our Minister of Finance, Bu Sri Mulyani, basically highlighted that, look, if the oil price is like this and the fuel price that we sell is like this, our budget is gonna explode. Because we see the number grow from the fuel subsidy budget maybe 3-4 almost 4 times goes up very very high. So this is not sustainable. So my boss Pak Luhut asked me, okay Rahmat, if you are smart, see whether you can help fix this issue. How can we have our state budget less dependent on fuel subsidy? I said okay. I thought about it and was like, I have this very so I have 2 suggestions for you, Pak. One will work very quickly but you won't like it. Second is will take a longer time but potentially will be more sustainable. Okay, what is the first one? This is around July 2022. Like Omicron is happening. Why don't we do lockdown again? If there is a lockdown, the fuel consumption will go down, right?
Yep.
I said, yeah, you're right. I don't like that. No lockdown. Okay. Then we have to find a solution whereby we don't use oil for our mobility. Why don't we push electrification of transport? And I look around and I found that we already have the umbrella regulation.
Yeah.
So okay, why don't we do that? Fine. What should we do? I said, okay, let's benchmark. We may need to give more incentive because there's a few things that we haven't done, right? So give more incentive. So that is roughly the story initially when I start working on that. That's where I ended up working in this topic. But the philosophy for Indonesia on EV is actually, I would say maybe threefold. Yeah.
Okay.
First of all, on energy security. Right? Indonesia is a country that is very, very rich in energy. So we actually produce 1.9 times more energy than what we use.
Yeah.
Okay. But on the what we use, we actually import 20%. Okay. So the number is like this. What we use is about 2,000, and this is 2024 data, yeah. 2008 million of barrel of oil equivalent of energy. What we produce is about, I'm rounding up now, 3,900.
Okay.
We export 2,100, yeah, but we import 400,
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah, give or take, yeah. I'm rounding. Why? Because what we produce and what we export is actually coal. What we import is oil and LPG. So LPG and oil is about 85% of what we import. Okay. So because what we have and what we use is different, that's why we import, right? And on the oil, so we import a lot of oil, and on the oil, actually 90% is actually used for transportation, for mobility. Okay. So the question is, if we continue doing mobility using the current system, we will continue being dependent on fuel, imported fuel. in this
Imported
case.
fuel. Yeah.
Imported fuel. So that is the angle. Because I keep mentioning to some of my friends, like, do you need benzene or solar? They say, yeah. I said, no, I will argue you need mobility. You need to move from from point A to point B. Fuel is an enabler. Right?
Yeah.
So if you can do mobility without fuel, in this, for Indonesia case, it's actually better.
Okay, I see.
So that is one angle. Yeah, we maybe last point on that is for electricity, we actually have almost all domestic. We have coal. Yeah, we have gas, natural gas. We actually have all the renewables. There's all domestic. So if we, for example, if we shift to electrification, we will basically will not be dependent anymore
Yeah.
with imported oil. So that is one angle, yeah, energy security. The second thing is about maybe this is topic close to our heart, is about environment, right? Two things. One is air quality, pollution, right? So if you burn something, it will emit CO2, which is creating global warming, and it's gonna create also smoke, which is air pollution. Air pollution is local. CO2, greenhouse gases, is global warming, right? In Jakarta, for example, Jakarta is the city that was being studied quite a lot on air quality. Majority, actually, more than 50%, the reason is actually on exhaust gas, asap knalpot. So because of we are using combustion engine. One example, if you remember during COVID, you see blue sky. Yeah, not PLTU, actually, because we still have electricity during COVID, kan? Not like, but the biggest source is actually less cars on the road. Air quality is actually better. CO2 obviously quite important, and if you don't burn fossil, you actually save CO2. Even if you use, we still use fossil for electricity. I can, we can be nerd about it later.
Right.
Okay, so that is the two things. So good for environment, so good for energy security. But the issue is, why do we invite all the manufacturers to Indonesia as well? It's about economic growth. Automotive sector is very important for Indonesian economy. While we see people start shifting to EV, if people like you, for example, you like EV, if we don't have manufacturers in Indonesia operating in Indonesia, we may end up fully import, right? Which is not what we want. So either we convince our existing manufacturers to produce EV, and or we invite, right? So this is also quite important. We shouldn't expect just fully import forever, but it has to be, the end goal is it has to be as much as possible value added manufacturing assembly in Indonesia. So these are the motivation, because what we don't want is we end up with technology that is basically not very healthy or force us to continue being dependent on imported energy, and or we do all this too, but we import the cars forever. That is not what we want. So those are the motivation.
Okay, but thank you. I mean, that's a lot of stuff that that we can talk about. I do want to ask a very. This is one of the biggest pushbacks on EV is that there's people say that this is our government way of greenwashing things, in a sense that, okay, we don't take the oil from Saudi, we don't take the oil from America, we don't import the oil, but at the end of the day, all the electrification of the cars goes to a power plant that the coals comes from coals.
Yeah, so
Yes.
for us to like nickel mining, right?
Yeah.
It is powered by coal,
Yeah.
basically. So
Right.
isn't that like counterproductive towards like
Right.
the green goal, actually?
Right, and some people say, "Oh, you're just buying an EV car." Because I got that criticism as well. Because when it took me a long time to shift to, the only reason why I shifted to EV car was personally it was economically better for me. Because that's the biggest shift of consumer power is
Because of the incentive, probably.
because of the incentive,
Yeah.
the pajak and the car and the gas prices and everything.
Yeah.
But people say, you know what? If the middle class buy EV cars, you're just greenwashing. This is just you thinking that you're changing the world, but you're not. That's one of the
okay.
biggest. And to be honest, there's some weight to that criticism.
Yeah.
What do you say to that critic?
Yeah. Obviously, that is not the first time for me hearing that.
Yeah, right.
So before I start, I want to be a nerd about this,
Love
right?
it. Let's be nerds. Let's be
Yeah.
nerds.
All right.
Let's be.
So
I love
do you
this.
know what it is? What is this?
This is a battery. This is a battery.
Ya, ini
That is a
baterai.
battery.
This is
Dynamo.
Dynamo.
Yeah,
Right.
motor. Yeah,
Yeah.
This is an electric motor.
Yeah.
So this is the heart. This is the heart of an EV,
Okay.
and this is the soul.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Heart and soul.
Okay. Do you know why EV is cheaper for you than combustion engine? Because, if you put electricity to this thing, it starts spinning,
Okay.
right? And it's gonna be quiet. It's not gonna be that hot, right? You have a Tamiya, right?
Yeah.
You don't see smoke. It's not hot, right? You
Yeah.
play with your Tamiya.
Yeah.
Because the nature of this electric motor is that there is a magnet inside, there is a coil inside, and the moment you put electricity towards that coil, they just want to spin,
Okay.
right? It's very efficient, very efficient. It's a very efficient energy converter from energy into
To
rotation.
Yeah.
Do you know how combustion engine works? Right.
yeah.
So combustion engine, and try to simplify.
Yeah.
So you have your energy, in this case, liquid fuel. So you burn that liquid fuel. You create a little spark like little explosion. That little explosion push the piston go up, and then go down again, and then explosion again, go up again, go down again. So something that goes up and down and then converted into rotation.
Yeah.
And you have multiple of that. You create like millions and millions of explosion.
Yeah.
That is not very efficient.
Efficient.
That's why, because of friction, because of all this, loud noise, a lot of the energy got lost through heat and
Okay.
through noise. That's why your motorbike, your car is gonna get very, very hot.
Yeah.
You burn it. Roughly, a combustion engine maybe convert energy 20 to 30%,
Okay.
while this motor probably 80 to 90%.
So it's way more efficient.
Way more efficient. That is why, if you convert it into movement, it's actually cheaper. So that is the reason. I'll give you a little bit more tangible, right?
Yeah.
So a typical car in Jakarta, it's like the fuel consumption is 110, 112. So every 100 kilo, you use, let's say 10 liter of fuel.
If you, yeah.
Yeah. How do you know how much for your car? How many kilowatt hour?
For my EV car right
Yes.
now. I mean, I don't know, but I know the prices I pay to charge it a month. That's my thing.
Okay.
And it's way cheaper. It's like
Yeah.
a fifth. I know it's a fifth of if I use a.
Yes, yeah. So maybe take a look later, yeah.
Yeah.
Typical, they'll give you X kilowatt hour
Yeah.
per 100 kilometer. So I've been using EV, like a few EVs, both
Yeah.
my office car, my own. Roughly a small one, typically about 10 kilowatt hour to 12, but medium size will be 15. Let's use 15.
Okay.
15 kilowatt hour per 100 kilo.
Right.
So same distance, 100 kilo. One using 10 liters, one using 15 kilowatt hour. Okay. If you have ChatGPT or Google, you can roughly find out a liter of gasoline, benzene, will generate about 2.3 kilogram of CO2.
Directly on the engine,
Engine,
there. Yeah.
2.3 kilogram. A diesel, 2.7. So, yeah, just use whatever number that you're comfortable. Say 2.5 or let's say 2.3. Okay. Now, so for EVs, the 15 kilowatt hour, a typical PLTU, coal-fired power plant, typical coal-fired power plant will emit 1 kilogram for 1 kilowatt hour.
That's
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
So if you connect your car to a power plant, coal-fired power plant, 100% power plant,
Yeah.
you'll have 15 kilogram.
Which is way more efficient.
While your ICE is 23.
23, yeah.
Okay.
And then that is assuming 100%
Energy.
coal-fired power plant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And Indonesia doesn't use 100%
I
coal-fired
understand.
power
Yeah. I understand
Yeah.
that.
So even with 100%, it's still, so in terms of CO2, that is my answer.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Air quality. There is 150 million knalpot, tailpipes in Jakarta. There is maybe 100 something, maybe a few hundred, not in the thousand for sure, coal-fired power plants in Indonesia. 150 million not in Jakarta, in Indonesia, knalpot, power plant 100. Mostly, a lot of it is controlled by PLN.
Yeah.
Which one can we control better? 150 million knalpot
Or 100, or what? Yeah.
or 100? So it's easier for us to check the emission, the pollution from this, and then we can basically come to PLN and say, "Hey, fix
Right.
fix it." Yeah. So those are maybe my answer
Right.
for the quote unquote greenwashing.
Right.
Then you want to talk about mining?
Yeah.
Okay, so sometimes one of the things that people typically ask is, don't buy EV because nickel mining destroy the environment.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it caused
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
deforestation
Yeah.
and
So
everything.
for nickel mining, I happen to have a little bit of experience here because until last year, I served in the board of PT Vale Indonesia as a commissioner. That is one of the largest nickel mine producer, nickel mine and smelter in Indonesia. Later on, you can check. They actually get a lot of environmental awards. Yeah, even Pak Jokowi come. Nah, they called Vale Indonesia in Sorowako,
Okay.
Sulawesi Selatan. So and then I've seen our mine. I've seen our not ours lake that is nearby. I see that we do reforestation.
Okay.
But anyway, so nickel mining destroy environment, therefore don't use EV. So that is for me. There's a bunch of logical chain that has to be true, which is I don't think it's 100% true to connect those two. First of all, not all EV is actually
nickel.
using nickel. Yeah, not all nickel is actually used for EV battery. Yeah, so not all battery is using nickel. Actually, only half of the battery is actually using nickel. Okay, not all nickel is being used for battery materials. Only about 18%, 20% is actually being used for the rest is actually stainless steel. And then obviously, not all mining or nickel mining is actually destroying the environment, right? Of course, you need to cut the trees first. You need to dig,
Yeah.
but you can put it back and you can replant it, and it will take time to about 10, 15 years, but you can make it a forest again. I've seen that happen. So what I want to say is the EV itself, the car that you use, is actually something that they use nickel, right?
Yeah.
Or they may not use nickel, or they use all these mining commodities, but none of that requires the miners to do it irresponsibly, right? So we have to admit there are some bad actors out there, right? There are some nickel mines, there are some whatever mines in Indonesia and the world that create destruction for the environment. And for me, I do think that we should not accept that. I think we should challenge them. We should do something about them. We should punish them depending on our law. But again, that is not the reason why we should not use a
Right.
technology that is more efficient, that is actually better for the environment, assuming everything else is equal, yeah. Because of those bad actors.
I think a lot of people can agree that electrification is the right goal.
Yeah.
It's just that
Agree.
is our path towards its implementation is causing more harm than good. Is the cost worth like the benefit we're reaping, and whether that result in net positive towards like the actual goal we're trying to get? Because as of now, right? And this, I just read this report. Let me read it because I don't remember. Like, according to Nusantara Atlas, a nonprofit basically that tracks deforestation, nickel mining in Indonesia has caused the loss around 193,000 hectares of forest, in addition to 5,000 hectares cleared for smelters. And so, like, obviously, there's a lot of environmental damage, and a lot of people, I think, they are questioning whether is this worth it? Is this, towards like the actual goal of like actually being more green and causing less pollution and things like that? And also about pollution, right, Bang? A lot of the people who live around the smelter, they are getting a lot of air pollution. They are reporting a lot of air pollution. And I just find it like a bit ironic that electrification, nickel mining is for the goal of reducing air pollution globally or even in Indonesia, but it is the people around those smelter are the one paying the price of like getting air pollution.
Yeah. My comment to that is that they should not be paying the price. because there are ways to mine nickel responsibly. But maybe one other thing is what I want to say is this also. What we ask for, Indonesia have a lot of nickel, yeah.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, this is not because of EV only, but the goal for Indonesia is downstreaming.
Yeah.
Again, downstreaming, some to EV, some others is actually for stainless steel. Yeah. Why? My knowledge of nickel, yeah. Nickel ore from Sulawesi
Yep.
is actually 2% nickel, sometimes less than 2%. 20+% iron, a little bit of cobalt, and the rest is water, 35%, 35% moisture, which is water, and the rest is dirt. So imagine today, or not today, before we dig this, and then we send it to Japan, China to be processed. Yeah. So 2% nickel, the rest is dirt and water. So what we wanted is actually they need to change from 2% into 60, 70, 70%, 30% become middle product, yeah. Not ore, but one process. With the hope that we create
Added value.
industry, added value.
Okay.
Again, whether so the idea is, should we continue digging only or process in Indonesia? I will argue that we want to create this technical capabilities, industrialization in the country, but I take your point and I agree. I mean, I'm nickel mostly in Sulawesi. I'm from Sulawesi, so
Okay.
these are my island mates, if you will. We should not accept if these guys are basically committing crime.
Yeah.
I'm fully for EV and electrification. Right? I'm fully for it. My next question, apart from the implementation and the crime and all that stuff, is my next question is, I went to Vietnam.
Yes.
They have VinFast.
Yes.
Yep.
China is China. But if Vietnam can do VinFast, we have all the raw materials. This is an age-old question from Indonesia.
Yeah.
Why can't we have our own VinFast? We have smart people like you, and I'm sure so many more smart people coming on the younger generation. It's just that we're always stuck with at the end of the day, we send our raw stuff abroad process
Yeah,
it,
and-
we buy it more expensive.
And we're already in the process of wanting to downstream, right?
Right.
Of wanting to like industrialize. Why don't we industrialize to the point we have our own?
Right.
electric
And I
car?
understand that it's a process. I know Andovi is not easy, right? Japan and China took a long time to get there. But I just feel, and I may be completely wrong, I may be completely out of my bubble. I just feel like our economic model for growth right now is we have all the raw stuff, we send it abroad, we buy it back.
Yes.
There's so many smart people in Indonesia. I don't understand why we can't do the Vietnam way of VinFast. I'm thinking, because if I say China, people are going to say, oh, look at China. No, I'm saying VinFast, our Southeast Asian friends. Right, so.
I have a theory on
Okay,
that. Yeah.
please, yeah.
You say in Vietnam,
Yeah.
you say one company,
Right.
VinFast,
Yeah.
right? They are private sector. That question, I think you should ask for our Chamber of Commerce members, our local conglomerates, our local businessmen.
Okay.
Why don't you make EV?
Right.
Okay. The government job is to provide an environment whereby investment should be easy or easier,
Okay.
right? As a policymaker who was involved in EV manufacturing, that is also my question. How come BYD? How come VinFast?
Yeah.
How come before Toyota, Hyundai, they all want to build here? Why?
Why are we building here?
Yeah, why no entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs are building? Again, if they say, oh, the government regulations are not good enough, fact of the matter is actually other people are building here. If they're saying the market is not good enough, then apparently other people are building here.
Like foreign companies.
Yeah, I guess the question is how come our local entrepreneurs are not building here?
I mean, that's a fair question. And I mean,
Yeah.
let's look at the local conglomerates, whoever they are. I'm not going to mention names. But
That being said,
Yeah.
there is one local conglomerate who is actually building a local brand.
Okay.
Right now, Polytron, for example.
yeah, Polytron.
I know that they are basically buying from
Right.
China as well, but they are building their own local brand. I think you need to start somewhere.
Right. And I just feel like, I mean, if I was a local brand, and you're right, our government is giving all these other countries in. I know this is the Chinese playbook of the 1990s. China was like, oh, Google wants to come here? No, we're gonna make our own internet. Firewall, block everything. If I was Polytron, whoever owns Polytron, and I know who owns Polytron.
Yeah.
I know the people back then. They would say, listen, we're not gonna have a head start against Hyundai, against BYD. Stop them for 6 months. Give us a head start, right? And is that the necessary sacrifice that one needs to take? I don't know. Like I'm not against Hyundai. I'm not against BYD. I'm saying there needs to be necessary sacrifices in which, if a local company wants to go against the giants, shouldn't Indonesia be brave enough to be like, listen, Hyundai, we love you. Give me 1 year.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I know maybe it's not your personal asset, but I don't know. It's for me. That's a simple logic that I can get.
I understand. Let's do a mental exercise.
Let's
And
go.
again,
I like this. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not speaking as a government here.
Right.
Ya.
As
Menurut keyakinan saya.
menurut
begini.
keyakinan saya. Okay.
Let's do a mental exercise.
Okay.
Let's say, so what you are saying is, first of all, I hope I've made a case that our market and regulatory environment is good enough for people to invest.
Right.
Okay? Now the question is whether the locals want preferential treatment
Yeah.
so that they can compete.
Right.
So, in short, make it difficult for other people, to come in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could say that.
Yeah.
Or make
And
it easier for locals.
And make it make it
Make
easy
it
for
easier
locals.
for
Both. Yeah. How would you feel if, let's say, a government today said, now you cannot buy
BYD.
your
et cetera.
foreign. You have to wait until the local company finish.
I would be mad. I would be like, it's my consumer choice, and I understand. So were the Chinese when their first bad internet came. When their first bad internet came, I'm sure all the billions of Chinese were like, we could have had Google, we could have had Facebook. I feel like, and I know I may be wrong, I think that's part of the growing pains,
But I feel like
in my opinion.
But I feel like the protectionist policy should come after the local company have proven themselves to be able to do that, right?
True
so
that, yeah.
once the consumer, for example, they already have like the EV car, for example, and some of them already have like a product to test and stuff like that, and then the government say, okay, we want to push this because it's already being tested. It's good enough and things like that, and then you start to roll out the protectionist policy. I think that's more reasonable than to like rolling out the protectionist policy and then say
wait.
now we're gonna wait for them to R&D, right? I don't think it works that way.
Right.
Exactly. So you see how difficult it
It
is.
is. No, it's not easy. It's always been, look, and I may be the wrong person to talk to, but I was at that point when I was like, when our country promised its first car, I'm not going to mention the brand.
Yeah.
I was ready to pay double the price to get our first national car. But again, I'm not most people. I understand.
Yeah, Andovi is very like that.
I'm very like that. So I was ready to pay whatever. But then our first car never materialized.
Yeah.
So, but there are some people who would be like stupidly nationalistic in that aspect of life where, okay, I will pay double the price.
Yeah.
But I know I'm a minority. I'm a minority. Like, because if you ask me, I love my car right now. But if I could have a local EV car, I would. They could make fun of me like, Andovi, you're so stupid. This our local EV car. It's not as efficient. It's not as chakap. It's not a. I would still buy it.
Yeah.
But again, I'm a minority. I understand that. Some people would just the price point will be the differentiator.
Yeah. There are multiple ways to do that. To be honest, for example, I think the current government is planning to
Yeah,
create.
they're trying. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I guess that is mental exercise. When that car come out, what should one do? Right? For example,
Right.
obviously one of the things that we can do, for example, as a government, is to get the government to purchase. You know, we are buying cars.
Right.
We can kind of be the test, the trial, right?
Yep.
Until we reach certain learning curve and whatnot, right? But yeah, I'm asking you your opinion.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe the markets will not. And the problem is Indonesia is much more democratic than
Right. Then
some of the countries.
Yeah, some of the countries I mentioned, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand that. So it's different. I know. It's a thought exercise as well.
Yes.
I've always wondered because even Malaysia has their own car. No matter if you say the quality is, I'm not talking about the quality. India has their own car.
Yeah.
This it's a
That is, even China, for example, is a
Yeah.
good example. You know where they start, right? They started from assemblers, and then they create these assemblers,
and then they learn.
And then they learn.
learn,
Yeah.
and then they create their own brand.
Because I remember
So
people.
are we doing that
Are we
with
doing
like
that?
EV?
Are we doing-
Since
what
we're inviting a lot of people here, right?
Yeah. The assemblers today
Yeah.
haven't become car producer.
So they okay.
They're
Yeah.
stuck.
There are some
being-
brands
There's some-
who
okay.
we are hoping
Right.
will create national car through this path, but
But it's okay. I mean,
But we're waiting. But you guys, like the government, are waiting for their initiative to actually take that leap.
because as I said, our job is to provide
Yeah.
the
legal framework.
legal framework,
The
environment.
runway.
The runway. Okay.
I see. That is actually a very interesting mental thought exercise, right? Like, why hasn't like any local player, like from your personal opinion, why? I'm very curious because you're in this field, right? You've talked to a lot of players, I assume.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe. Menurut keyakinan saya again.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
We don't really have that much yet, manufacturing conglomerates or industrial companies. Yeah.
Okay.
If you see a bunch of our big companies, they come from resources
Extractive businesses, right?
or financial services
Sure.
or consumer goods.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that we know we can have noodle or
Yeah.
soap as good or cooking oil or coal as good as anybody, for example, but maybe not comfortable
Not-
to produce vehicles.
You're right.
That is again what why take the risk if
A
in the
theory.
world that they already have a very good manufacturing, why take the risk?
Right. Because it's all risk, right? Like, why would I take this risk while I can always default into like the more familiar type of businesses for them?
Either I just sell or I just assemble for them.
So isn't that the government's job to nudge them, to give them like incentive? For example, like, oh, if you go into this, for example, business, then we can give you ABCD, kind of like that, right?
What I can say is, in the decree, there is a regulation that says local brands can get more incentive.
Really?
Okay.
Okay.
So in the decree, it's stated. It's stated.
So this
Local
is
brands can
the
get more
decree
incentive.
is the presidential regulation 79.
Yeah,
year
number
20
55. Number 55, the
2020.
predecessor.
Oh, the predecessor.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because we don't change the whole thing.
Okay, you amend some of the stuff,
Yeah.
right? Okay, that is. So I have another question actually. So in our like EV innovation, EV race, downstreaming thing, it is mostly nickel, right? Because like Indonesia's nickel
No,
reserve.
not nickel. Yeah, but yeah, please
But
continue
also-
your train of thought.
Right. Oh, so it's not just, I said not, obviously not all nickel, but a lot of it are nickel based.
No, in
No?
Indonesia. No.
Okay.
what is it based
So what
in
is it
Indonesia?
then?
Yeah. So
Maybe that's a misconception that we need
Yeah,
to clear
yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah.
well, okay. Let me quickly explain about battery chemistry.
Okay, I love it. Let's go.
Okay.
Chemistry 101. I love this.
So first of all, maybe before that, we'll go to the industry ecosystem of electrification. Maybe let's start assuming nickel. Yeah,
Okay.
nickel ore, 2% nickel. Yeah.
Dirt and water, the rest.
Dirt and water, the rest converted into nickel MHP. MHP converted into nickel sulfate. Nickel sulfate mixed into precursor material. I'll better use cooking. Yeah.
Yeah.
This one is like bawang, onion,
Yeah.
or shallot, right? And then you start cutting. Yeah, you cut it, right? And then you start mixing it with, with other material that is, which is ready to be put into something, right? To another, as a spice for other cooking, yeah. So precursor, cathode, Until precursor, they're all commodity. You can mix and match. Any company can buy nickel sulfate, but they use their own ratio. Yeah. But once they make the cathode, typically it was for specific application, like battery of CATL or battery of LG or battery of whatever manufacturers. The same way as this is cooking for soto, this is
Yeah.
cooking for rawon. It's very different cooking. Yeah. For different restaurants. Okay.
Yeah.
The cathode is then mixed in with anode, become battery cell. This is like this, right? Battery cell. Then once become battery cell, it's already there is a battery cell manufacturers. Yeah, already. Then this battery cell needs to be packed. So an EV battery, maybe the battery is probably bigger than this table, maybe like that table. Yeah. So thousands or hundreds or thousands of this type of things combined into one, right? So they don't travel that well anymore. Okay. Then the battery pack become EV manufacturers. Okay. So if you look at from downstreaming, you go from commodity, global commodity, and then become very specific.
Yep.
Yeah. If you look at it from the EV, from the car, it start from a Tesla, for example, or a BYD or a Hyundai.
Yeah.
Each of them want to buy their own battery
Yep.
because the battery for them is not a commodity. They will go to certain type of people that says, I want that battery. I'm your customer. I want to buy from you. And they will design the battery pack according to their car.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then so battery pack producer typically is in this near vicinity of a car manufacturer.
Yeah.
Because you have to travel far, yeah, and it's already finished goods. Battery cell and battery pack typically also very close vicinity. So my job at that time, so when I was a deputy of infra and transport, when I was doing this, I said my job is not downstreaming. My job is upstreaming, such that when people build the value chain from the upstream to downstream, there is someone who actually buys it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if let's say people create precursor in Indonesia, but there is no battery, there's no cathode company, and the cathode company will not exist if there is no
Yeah.
cell company cannot, pack company, and etc. If there is no auto industry in Indonesia, forget about the whole thing.
Right.
To go to full downstreaming, because I can't say to a Japanese, to a German, to American, if you want Indonesian nickel, buy Indonesian made car. Can you imagine that they say, hey, sorry, I'm not selling you nickel, I'm selling you car.
Right.
They don't want. It'll be unlikely that American, a German, a Japanese, or a Korean wants to buy Indonesian assembled car, because
yeah.
they actually have their own
car.
their own brand, right? So one other thing that I want to highlight is you mentioned Indonesia production is more than 50%, resource about 30%, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Again, my knowledge is probably dated. You know how many percent of cars in the world is manufactured in Indonesia?
No idea.
2%,
Okay.
Okay.
even less than 2%.
Right.
So you have this very big nickel production,
Yeah.
Right.
but
Only 2%
Very little. Yeah.
So-
manufacturing. Yeah.
we are not the market maker for car.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
You know where these guys are? 1/3 is in China,
Right.
1/6 is in the Europe,
Right.
and 1/6 in the US, in America.
Right.
So 2/3 of the
Two-thirds,
market.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So hold that thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now talking about battery chemistry. The prevailing chemistry today is LFP and NMC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, nickel, manganese, cobalt,
Yeah.
and
Lithium.
lithium
something.
ferrophosphate. Ferro
Phosphate,
is
yeah.
iron.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, NMC is also lithium NMC.
I feel like I'm back in high school.
Yeah.
Chemistry.
Yay.
Okay. So anyway, so all of them use lithium, but one is using nickel, manganese, cobalt, mostly nickel, and this is ferrophosphate,
Yep.
iron. I told you that our nickel ore has 2% nickel,
Right.
20% iron, right? So we actually have plenty of iron.
I see.
Okay,
So we're
right.
taking both route.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Now, what is the, and then you can Google it yourself, right? I mean, I'm just telling you, menurut keyakinan saya again, ya, what I understand to be true. Okay. Nickel. Why nickel was famous first? Because nickel battery has more energy density. So with the same volume, same weight, they're actually more
Packs more punch.
Packs more energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can charge it quicker.
Yeah.
And also you make it better performance. Yeah. And also most interestingly, it's actually more weather resistant, cold resistant especially.
Oh, more cold resistance.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's better for European cars, for US cars.
Yeah.
Okay.
LFP is actually less energy dense.
Okay.
Sorry, nickel therefore more expensive than LFP.
Then LFP.
Yeah. Energy dense, so heavier car, and not very good in cold weather.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can see they drop to zero,
Yeah.
but cheaper. Okay, so to simplify, high performance, expensive car, especially during winter time, that actually have to handle winter time, nickel probably more superior.
Right.
If you want cheaper,
Right.
you are okay with
LFP.
lower
LFP,
performance,
yeah.
and you don't have winter, LFP will be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for Indonesia at the time, we should do both
Yeah.
because we don't know which one is gonna win.
yes.
Okay.
I joke at the time. I told my boss, and my friend, this is like Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo.
Okay.
Both can be very powerful.
Yeah.
Right.
But one is born with a very, very, they're blessed with abundant of talent. One actually exercise a lot.
Yeah.
Train a lot, right?
Yeah.
And we know in China, they actually do a lot of LFP.
Yeah.
Right.
So what happened? We cannot take this for granted. We have to have both. And for Indonesian market, because our GDP per capita is not as high and we don't have winter, to be honest,
LFP makes more sense.
it's okay to
Right.
use LFP. It's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was actually gonna be my question. So because I was like, so there's like the cobalt and nickel battery, and then there's the LFP. So which one are we? Are we only doing one and not the other? But apparently
Both.
we're still
We're doing
we're
both.
doing both. So that
Okay.
answers what I was gonna ask earlier.
Right. No, but thank you. This has been very interesting and enlightening. I mean, like, again, we're asking. If we seem like we're pushing back, we're not pushing back for the sake of pushing back. I am so into EV electrification. I know it's the right way to go. We don't want to rely on oil because oil is gonna run out. I don't know when. I mean, you know, scientifically, maybe they say 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. We have no idea.
Yeah.
But then
What we do know is that we import a lot of oil.
right.
Yeah,
And we want to
yeah,
reduce our dependency
Yes.
on the import.
Which-
So that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
So China wants to also reduce their dependency on import. Oh, that's why they went all EV, right? So I understand that point.
Yeah. And where I stand, I feel like, again, globally, the trend is going towards electrification. So we need to be a player whether we want it or not. And it's just that I feel like for a lot of people, and for me personally also, is that I hope that how Indonesia go about this, the implementation, it is reaping more benefit than harm,
Yeah.
I guess.
Right.
And the harm, obviously, like you mentioned, will always happen, but I hope that it is being actively managed and those who are doing crimes are being sufficiently punished, right?
Right. No,
And-
they have to be specific. but
Yeah. So and speaking of crimes, I'm very curious. This is like outside of the EV topic, right? Though,
Right. But I love it.
But I need to ask you.
Sure.
So looking at you, Bang Rahmat, you're a technocrat, right? You are a professional that is going into the government right now. Considering like what has been going on in Indonesian politics, you know where I'm going with
I
this,
know.
right?
Are you scared?
Yeah,
That's
are
my
you
honest
scared?
question.
I feel like I don't really have to explain, but there has been a lot of criminalization of technocrats in Indonesia, and I feel like, it's a lot of people are scared. So I'm just wondering for you
Are you
in your
scared?
current
I mean,
position
Tom
right
was
now.
your first job,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Tom was
After MBA, yeah.
after MBA, sorry.
Yeah.
And then with Nadim, what's going on? So it's like, yeah, are you scared?
To be honest, someone asked me that question before, friend of mine, and I said, I don't know why I should be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you don't feel like you're doing anything wrong.
Yes, that's how I felt, right?
Right.
Trying to do the right thing
Right.
and whatnot. And maybe I'm a small fry, so I'm not that important.
I mean, you're not a small fry, but like maybe one day you make an advisory decision on a kebijakan that says, okay, let's do the nickel mining here. And 10 years later, they're like, oh, it was your decision that made us cost way more. It should have been
State
that
loss, state
loss.
Yeah.
So aren't you like, and you're doing it from a very scientific point of view. No. It's this ore, it's this cobalt, it's this
And
LFP.
I mean, even and with investment and business, and I mean, you've been in Bukalapak. We all know that there's always uncertainties, right? And when people treat like uncertainties and business loss as state loss, that's where it gets really muddy.
Yeah.
And I know this is not a topic. If you
Yeah.
don't want to
Yeah.
answer, we get it.
We can answer it later.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I think now we can go to the Weeboo's question.
Yeah, the
right?
questions
Yeah.
on the comment sections.
Yeah.
From Kureyon no Sekai. Do you miss the startup life?
I'm not saying I miss it, but my startup life is very unique. Yeah, it was startup plus COVID. Definitely, I didn't miss the COVID.
Okay. Okay.
I kind of like it that I was the CEO of a company. so that is.
So
that
you miss the CEO part.
yeah, but the startup actually having to maybe one thing that I have in startup life that maybe in the government is different is that during startup life you can make decisions very
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 fast.
quickly
Very fast.
without having to be worried about consequences, like very long consequences that you
Like
described.
what we mentioned earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say working for the government, I'll keep saying to people, my friends, I do think that the best people have to work for the government. And if you get the right gig in the government, right environment, that is very few other ways better to serve.
To serve.
Yeah. Because you can make very big impact.
Okay, but you know, like how right now, right, a lot of like our best talents are scared to actually go to the government. And I mean, for me personally, I don't think I can blame them with what's been going on. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah. I think you have to understand why things happen to people and make sure you manage that.
You manage that first.
Yeah.
So learn why.
Why
Certain
things
thing-
happen? Yeah. But bottom line, try to do the right thing as much as you can. Yeah.
There we go.
Dimas Raf _
Yes.
As a former Indonesian delegation for the International Chemistry Olympiad, do you still love chemistry?
Do I not show it when I
Yeah.
explain to you?
Oh, this is actually interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from Octopops, that's a very
That's,
funny.
okay.
Yeah. Itching to know whether we're more at risk from a rapid domestic renewable transition causing market shock, or from a gradual transition that may leave us vulnerable to an abrupt decline in coal demand. Thanks.
Okay.
Great question.
For me, given the situation, yeah, I think it's unlikely that we actually have a rapid, quote unquote, rapid domestic renewable
Transition.
transition. But also, I think I'm more scared about
The
abrupt
second
coal
part.
decline in coal demand, not domestic, yeah,
From globally.
from globally. So
Why?
one thing, so that's why I'm a little bit confused when I look at this. But let me try to tell you where I'm coming from. Indonesia produce a lot of coal.
Yep.
70 to 80% of the coal is actually exported. So in all grand scheme of things, the coals that we use domestically is actually very small compared to what we export. So the issue for me, for our economy, is not, let's do a mental exercise. Let's assume we no longer use coal fire power plant. So
Yeah.
we have we don't use coal domestically. It's probably better for us because, for example, hydro is quite cheap.
Yeah.
Solar now is becoming cheaper.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. So we get 100% export revenue. Wouldn't it that better for environment, right? Sorry, for our economy. So
Right.
fully export, better for environment, better for economy. Why not? For example.
Okay.
Yeah. But what if the export demand drops? I think that could be more dangerous.
And isn't globally like the demand is dropping, because like the trend now is like country wanting to go towards more clean energy, and so therefore that's why Indonesia are actually pushed to phase out coal, right?
Yeah, those are two different things.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I'm also very involved in Just Energy Transition Partnership. yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I don't see yet a very big decline in coal demand
Globally,
globally.
I see.
At least maybe not globally, but more from Indonesia. So Indonesian coal is still selling quite well, yeah. Yeah, but so far, yeah, I haven't registered, so I don't follow the market, but
Right.
nobody
Okay.
really talk about it that much. Typically, if this is very important, people will talk about it, right, in the market. We can take a look. But what I'm afraid is that if that thing happens suddenly,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, if let's say 2060 comes about, my biggest worry, to be honest, on energy transition is that we don't have other commodity to replace coal for export. That is my worry. So I don't know whether you probably have heard, like we are trying to find ways to export electricity to Singapore, for
Yeah.
example.
Is it through like trash management?
No.
thing? Oh, is that different?
Through solar panel.
Solar
yeah.
panel.
So there is that effort. We'll create a cable. I think one of the benefit, for example, if we export something else, not coal,
Yeah.
or maybe at some point if we can convert, we can create a lot of hydrogen, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, then we can export. So my biggest worry on economy is about maybe abrupt decline globally, and we have nothing to replace it.
But I just had a thought in my mind and I had to say it out loud.
Sure.
Because it will kill me.
Okay.
I just knew now that 80% of our coal is exported, which is okay. And this might be a very stupid question scientifically. shouldn't we just export 70% and use 30% karena kita mati lampu hampir tiap hari in this country?
Yeah.
So I don't get the math right. All this time I thought kita mati lampu because our grids are not working well. We don't have enough energy. But clearly by this logic, we are sending energy abroad.
Yeah, we are producing more than we're
Right.
using,
So
right?
why? Okay, mati lampu might be a very technical question, right? But then shouldn't we just keep more of our coal so that our people don't get mati lampu? I'm sorry if that sounds very stupid question.
No. That is.
I don't get it.
But electricity and coal to electricity requires some
The
processing.
infrastructure,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Right.
And then I think PLN
Right.
was actually they have a priority.
Right.
So if whatever PLN needs,
Right.
they should be able to get,
Right.
and actually at a good price too.
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
they should have enough of what they need. Yeah. But I guess the question is, of course, we need to learn how to use more renewables as well, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Hydro,
yeah.
geothermal, solar, whatever.
Right. Okay.
Did that answer
Yeah.
your question?
Yeah. I just
So it's an infrastructure problem
right.
issue.
It's an infrastructure
I guess.
issue, not a pure energy source issue.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Next. This is interesting.
Oh yeah, this is very consumer. Thank you, Glenn Turangan. Are there any planned policies for consumers regarding the resale value of secondhand EVs? Okay, for those of you who don't know, the number one reason, there are many reasons why you want people to buy EVs, but one of the reasons is nggak bisa dijual di secondhand market karena the price goes down like crazy. So many people are discouraged due to the rapid depreciation value and compares it to the long-term ownership of combustion engine vehicles retain value. So how do you talk to people that says don't buy EV because the resale value sucks?
I think it's very reasonable that they think that, considering what happened in the past few years. Okay. What I want to highlight here is I'm assuming that the price will stabilize in the future.
Okay.
So if you remember, before a car was sold for X.
Right.
Now, at the time, maybe very limited competition.
Right.
The same car, after competition being introduced,
It's
now
X
being,
minus 200.
yeah, X, like half of X or something,
Half of
right?
X. Yeah.
Whatever.
I know which car exactly you're talking about.
Yeah, or whatever cars, right?
Yeah.
So, why? There is no, the only reason is because they can. A lot of times in Indonesia, they sell car, they price it because they can. But once you introduce the competition, hopefully, when people start selling with their fair price, the drop should not be that deep anymore. Okay, I'll tell you a little bit because I used to work in a company that distribute cars, right? So for ICE, you've been in the US, right? You stay in the US. Do you see ICE cars as a storage of value in the US the same way as a storage of value in Indonesia? No, right?
No, I don't think so.
You know why? The reason why the resale value of a used car stays stable because the new car price keep being increased.
Okay.
Yeah?
Right.
So they keep being increased. Why? Because they can. Now, the question is, you start seeing phenomenon that a car that used to cost X now costs 2X.
Yeah.
And they are the same car.
Right.
Yeah? Do you see that trend to be sustainable in a competitive era?
No.
Because that is the only reason.
That's only I
The
get it.
second.
Yeah. The moment, let's say, the price stays,
Yeah.
do you think the resale value will stay that long? Because people will compare the second-hand car with the new car.
Right.
So that is the reason. I would say once the new EV price stabilizes, they don't really drop, because of competition anymore. They start with the real price,
Okay.
and potentially they'll go up little bit. Yeah,
Then the second hand might start to stabilize. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I think we have one questions left.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are curious too.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So it's
Dari-
very simple.
that-
What went wrong with buka?
Dari sayap ayam.
Sayap ayam.
Sayap ayam ya.
Sayap ayam.
Oh, sayap. Oh.
Chicken wing.
Sayap chicken wing.
Chicken wing.
Did you say sayap ayam?
Sayap ayam atau sayap ayam?
Sayap ayam. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. So
Yeah.
what went wrong with buka?
Yeah, so I think for a lot of people, like they were talking about like after IPO, the price went up and then it drops down, right?
Yeah. So first of all, I have to highlight that I was there from 2020 early January until end of 2021, or say 2022 early. Yeah. So I was there almost actually a little bit more than 2 years. So I can first answer when I was there.
Okay.
I don't know after, right?
Yeah.
So I have this number that I can show you
You printed.
Wow.
because a lot of people ask me the same questions. And then
Guys.
first of all, as a caveat, I
Is
still
this is a balance sheet.
this is a balance sheet and
Oh,
this
wow.
is the
Oh, it's a
Yeah.
the balance sheet.
balance sheet and and by the way, I still hold almost all of my Bukalapak share until today.
Until now.
Yes.
Oh.
But what I want to tell you this, Dovi.
Yeah.
So this is a revenue P&L, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was there when I joined Bukalapak is the end of 2019. So you should compare in 2019
Yeah, I'm looking at it right
until
now.
2021,
Right.
right? So 2
Yeah.
years period.
2 years. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Look at the revenue. The revenue grow
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
from 1,077
to
18.
3.618 billion.
Sorry, this one.
Yeah. To
The-
1.68869.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, 3.618.
Total
3.618 billion.
pendapat. No, this one.
2021.
2021.
Oh,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
1.9 billion.
1.9. Okay, so grow, right?
Yeah.
About
Okay.
80%. You look at the net income. In 2019,
2019 is 2.7
minus 2.7.
minus 2.7. So yeah, yeah.
Minus 2.7. And then become minus 1.6,
6.
1.6.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So increase revenue, increase profit, or reduce loss.
Yeah, reduce loss.
So basically increase revenue, reduce cost.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the other thing that I want you to see is cash. Yeah. In startup, we call it runway.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at the runway in 2019, look
Yeah.
at the cash,
It's
about-
884 billion.
which is quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
But if you compare it to the yearly loss, is
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
minus 2.8.
yes. So I have about 4 months runway, 5 months runway.
Right, makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you look at the
2021.
end of 2021.
24,700 billion
Yes.
to
Compared to 1.6.
okay, all right.
So roughly, I left the company
Positive.
with more revenue,
Yeah.
less cost, therefore more profit, higher cash,
Yeah.
higher runway, 15 years runway.
Right.
Yeah.
So to be honest, when I left the company, my conscience is
Clean.
quite clear. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because I said, look, within the 2 years, this is what we have achieved. Of course, not my own achievement,
Right.
but together with everybody. Now, stock price
Yeah.
drops from IPO, go up 50% in 2 days, and then stabilize IPO price for a little bit and then drop.
Yeah.
Okay. To be honest, that is a mystery for me as well, because market somehow decided that our value that used to be 850 at IPO, 1300 2 days after IPO, become at the time when I left maybe about 400, and now 149.
Yeah, no, it kept going down.
Yeah.
It's,
So my guess is probably initially euphoria.
okay.
Then when people didn't look at the fundamentals, they trade on momentum. They say, oh, this is the stock that is not keeping ARA all the time, and they start dumping. So that is potentially my explanation.
But you have no idea. Like it's a mystery to you too.
Yeah, that is the best possible explanation
Your
I can have.
By the way, this is
hypothesis.
the first time I've seen a balance sheet with this big of numbers, guys. This is a crazy big number. I mean, Matt for Coffee does not have these big numbers. This is insanity.
The aminin na Dov.
I mean, damn, to see like these numbers is like holy.
I like how you're caught up with that.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Okay, thank you for bringing the balance sheet.
So maybe like last question, just random. Like since you talked about like the stocks, what do you think of the Indonesian stock market right now?
Well,
Do you actively trade or you don't?
I'm not actively trading.
But
I
you
do
own
have
some stocks.
I have some.
He still holds like all of his stocks.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you got stocks. And apart from that, what else? No, I'm just kidding. So what else do you hold now?
Well, what I say is I think the Indonesian stock market is quite different from the way I learn
Stocks.
stock market
Ah.
when during my MBA. I learned. I took some investment classes at Stanford. I mentioned I actually went to visit Warren Buffett. In Omaha.
Right. Yeah.
Basically, we learn value investing.
Yeah.
Finding all the good company at a reasonable price,
Yep.
right? In Indonesia, it seems like there are companies like that. You can make reasonable return following that, but the ones that get a lot of hype is actually good companies that whose price is actually going up very, very fast. So I don't claim to understand the Indonesian
Is
stock
it
market.
understandable, or is it random? Maybe not random.
I don't
but
think it's random.
It's
Or
not
is it just
random.
magic?
Yeah,
It's just it's vibes. It's vibes. You know what? This company vibes, and then just go.
yeah. One thing I can tell you though, that I remember because I was in investing world before
Yeah.
for a really long time. The investment number, the investor number, the SID number, is actually stuck. Maybe about 2 million, 3 million for a really long time. But the number jumps a lot after COVID.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So, so that's one. So the COVID investors,
Yep.
maybe get people hooked, right?
Yep.
And if you remember, at the time, index was 7,000 and dropped to 4,000 during COVID. So a lot of people join at the bottom,
Yep.
and then they rise up.
Everything.
So everything went up. So everybody think they're the next Warren Buffett.
Yeah,
So
makes
they thought
sense.
that, hey, I am actually quite good at this.
Even though like whatever you choose, it will
Yeah,
go
it
up
will
because
go
it
up,
has
yeah.
crashed. Yeah.
So
Makes sense.
yeah, we have a bunch of people right now. There's a lot of new investors who has experience trading and making money in the Indonesian capital market. So we'll see. I'm also as curious as you where this is going.
Okay,
Alright.
last for me.
Okay.
So we've been talking about EVs. Your favorite EV car right now?
Oh wow.
We gotta talk about it.
Is
I mean,
he allowed to say?
are you personally right? Menurut, you can just say. it. I mean, you can say it. It's not you as an official, as a human being. You can say.
Yeah, I'm wrong. I'm a wrong person to ask. But
Okay.
why? Because to be honest, I see cars in general as a tool.
He doesn't see it as like a marketing perspective. Which paint is the best? Which
Not really. If can bring me safely from point A to point B with reasonable, I'll use it. And also,
then a personal question. So I bought. I don't care. I bought an Aeon. You know Aeon, right?
Yes.
Aeon. Do you think it's a good car now?
yeah,
Was it a good decision for me to buy an Aeon? Aeon yang
hype tech.
high tech.
Yeah.
Was that good or not? Or was
do you
it bad?
do you like it?
I love it.
Yeah, then it's a good decision.
Very diplomatic. Very diplomatic. Okay.
Is it price? Okay, never mind. We can talk about it off air.
Actually, you see when we look around to basically when we create Perpres 79,
Yeah.
we actually do multiple things. We talk to all our embassies
Okay.
where in that is stationed in the countries that have car industries. They say, hey, we have this new regulation. So
Okay.
please tell them
Oh.
to come if they're interested. Explain this regulation. And I actually personally went to multiple countries, met multiple producers. Actually, among all those producers that we met, actually only one, albeit very famous one, that didn't come to Indonesia.
Oh.
Who was it? The most famous one is Tesla.
Yeah, so they don't. The rest is actually come.
So everybody came but Elon Musk. He was too busy going to some island.
Maybe.
He's too busy tweeting. That's what he was doing, guys. Sorry, not
Elon,
tweeting.
just kidding,
no,
Elon. I would
posting
love
on
a Tesla.
X. Sorry, it's no longer Twitter.
Yeah, but well, of course, you can buy Tesla here, but they are not produced in Indonesia.
It's super expensive. Tesla
Yeah.
is super expensive.
But what we see is actually the one that comes are not all, but most of them is actually good producers in their own countries.
Including the Ion Hype Tech one, including
Yeah, you can take a look. You can take a look at top 20 players or top. In China, the EV industry is actually very, very competitive.
yeah, it's crazy.
They have 200 EV manufacturers.
Insane.
So if you can become top 10,
It's already insane. And Ion Hype Tech is part of. Okay, thank you. I'm making sure I bought the right car. I'm just making sure.
Alright. Okay.
Okay.
Final question. I'm just kidding. No, but I am curious because earlier, right, you keep mentioning that you're a nerd.
yes. Am I not nerdy enough?
No, I can see.
So I'm curious. Do you have any favorite nerdy TV show?
Oh, that's a great.
Big Bang Theory.
I knew it. I knew
To be
it.
honest, when I watched Big Bang Theory, I felt like I was back on campus.
Really? Who do you
Who do you vibe with?
resonate with the
Sheldon.
most?
I would be Leonard.
You're Leonard.
You're Leonard. Do you have a Sheldon in your life?
Do you have a Sheldon in your life?
I think we have some Sheldon in
Do
our
you
life.
have a Penny in your life?
Oh,
That's the more important question. Do you have a Penny in your life?
Unfortunately.
Okay.
Okay, that's it,
All
guys.
right. Thank you,
Thank you so much,
Bang.
Bang.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for watching. See you on our next podcast.